Hello everybody, welcome back to another analysis video of Kane Parsons' Backrooms series. First off, before we get really into anything, I wanted to thank you guys all for the overwhelmingly positive support that I got on my last video. I really did not expect that video to blow up as much as it did. I don't do any of this stuff on YouTube for money or attention at all. I just do this because it's like a hobby. It's like I just do this for fun, really, and as a form of creative expression. And I just really like to talk about this series. So it's really heartwarming that you guys did so well, like supporting the video. I loved I read as many comments as I possibly could, responded to as many comments as I thought I could, and I really hope that that kind of transitions over to this video, and I'm able to have a voice in this community talking about this stuff, because I really love this series, and I want to engage with the community as much as possible. So again, thank you guys so much for that. I hope you guys will enjoy this video as well. I wanted to make another thing to kind of bridge the gap in between this and the timeline video. I know that a lot of people had comments about that, and that they were anticipating that, and I'm gonna wait until the movie is out, until I actually upload that timeline video. I want to include the events of the movie in it. Today, I want to focus on one of Kane's videos that isn't necessarily new, but is a video that I feel like is probably the richest for an analysis. The video I want to look at today is Backrooms Overflow. This video was uploaded on Christmas Eve 2022, right after Reunion, so nobody in the community was really ready for this video to come out, and the events it shows are some of the most perplexing in the series. So without further ado, let's get into analysis of what this video actually means and what actually happens in it. As the video begins, we hear wind chimes and a radio broadcast that is discussing negotiations of the SALT Treaty, which is the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty between the United States and the Soviet Union.
Market and non-market economies. Well, as I've said, that our negotiations in this area with the Soviets are just beginning.
With this, we can immediately put a time frame on this video, and that time frame is the 1970s. Later, we're going to find out it's actually 1972. As the video continues, we see shots of the night sky and a countryside. Kane had stated after this video came out that Overflow does not take place in California. So where does this video take place? The score for this episode is called Midwestern Trauma Light. It's a part of Kane's official soundtrack for the series in Volume 3. We're going to talk more about this song later and a bunch of other musical evidence that I have for this video, but that main track is the entirety of this video, and I think the fact that it literally is called Midwestern puts us in the Midwest. So we see a power meter rising and then a bright yellow flash. This flash is almost identical to the one seen in the third test and in the video First Contact, where Async actually makes contact with the complex. We then see a red light flash on labeled Overload, and the camera then pushes onto a bulletin board with various items pinned to it. The map at the top of the bulletin board is a map of oil and gas pipeline networks in the United States. This might be relevant to what experiment is actually going on in the video, but I will explain that a little bit later. Other items include instructions for the experiment, as well as a post-it note, which Kane actually sent in Discord but quickly deleted. This post-it note relates to the whole Ivan Beck flood theory. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. I will link a video to Red, to her channel. She did a fantastic video on this entire flood theory. The most important document on this bulletin board is an experiment approval document signed by Ivan Beck on August 2nd, 1972. So we have our exact date for this video. The closer the camera gets to the paper, the more a green light fills the room until we cut back to the night sky, which is now mirrored. We're going to talk about why it's mirrored later. That's very important. So that's basically exactly what happens in this video. But what actually occurs? Well, let me explain overall what I think the plot is, and then I'll break it down kind of point by point. What I believe we're seeing in this video is Ivan running an experiment on a model fusion reactor, which, thanks to massive solar flare activity, overloads and accidentally creates a temporary threshold to the complex. During this event, Ivan loses an eye or is like blind in one eye and suffers from amnesia, possibly due to the complex taking his memories. So that's a lot to kind of digest. So let's break this down. Let's begin with the experiment. The oil and gas poster I mentioned earlier could relate to what kind of experiment Ivan's actually conducting here. We know Async later builds a low proximity magnetic distortion system to create the threshold and create a stable gateway into the complex. We know that the low proximity magnetic distortion system uses a fusion reaction to manipulate the electromagnetic fields. I'm not a physicist, so if this sounds incomprehensible to people who do know physics, I apologize. This is just my best attempt. It would then follow that if Async uses a fusion reaction later, that Ivan's initial work was to create a fusion reaction to aid in energy production. It's been the pursuit of scientists for a really long time to try to create a nuclear fusion reactor, which would then be self-sustaining. So that would then create, like, in theory, limitless energy, which would then relate to Ivan and whoever the people he's working with in this lab charting gas and oil pipelines, because that's how energy is transported now. So let's talk about the whole solar flare thing. In August of 1972, in our real actual world, there was a series of powerful solar storms, the worst of which occurred on August 4th. The August 4th storm was so bad, it caused the accidental detonation of numerous U.S. naval mines in North Vietnam. Solar storms, in my very limited knowledge, create massive electromagnetic interference. The picture of this solar storm is actually used in the cover art for every single song in Kane's Backrooms OST Volume 3, the one that includes Midwestern Trauma Light. So I believe this solar activity, because it creates such a disturbance in electromagnetic fields, actually is what caused Ivan's experiment to overload and gave him a glimpse into the complex, and therefore his post-traumatic amnesia. So let's dig into that aspect of it, the post-traumatic amnesia, and what actually happens to Ivan during this experiment. There's overwhelming evidence that Ivan somehow saw into the complex during this video. One piece of that evidence is the green light. The green light has been seen in 4 other videos so far. The first time it appeared was in Pitfalls, when Mark opened the door and discovered something shocking occurring. We later see the result of what he saw in Static Dead End, which includes glitched wallpaper, a dead-end room with tables and a soccer ball stuck inside the floor and walls. The next time we see the green light is in Found Footage 2. As Madison is fleeing from the life form, a green light is seen and heard down various hallways. Eventually, Madison is cornered in a dead end, and the green light overtakes the room and the video ends. The video then cuts to a living room, and we can hear wind chimes and ocean waves. Remember, at the start of Overflow, you can hear wind chime going in the wind. Wind chimes relate very heavily to Ivan, so we can, again, this is more evidence that what's occurring in this video is actually occurring to Ivan. We also briefly see the green light in the video I Remember, as the video goes through the entire visible light spectrum. We last see the green light in Found Footage 3 for one brief second when Ravi looks up at the ceiling next to sun paintings on the wall. Again, relation there between the green light and the whole solar flare thing. So what actually is the green light, and why would it give Ivan a glimpse into the complex? So based on Found Footage 2, Pitfalls, and Static Dead End, I think we can assume that the green light is the methodology in which the complex builds itself out. And what I mean by that is the green light is sort of like the natural evolution of the complex. And we can see this in Found Footage 2. For a brief moment, the wall kind of expands before Madison's totally surrounded by it. And based off where she is in a dead end, a place where the complex would then want to expand, we can then connect that back to Static Dead End. What Mark most likely saw when he opened that door is the process of the complex expanding out from a dead end and creating new hallways and new spaces. So I believe that its appearance in Overflow is the complex reaching out to Ivan, and then through the same method of copying stuff from the real world, it's copying stuff from Ivan's memories onto itself. So let's go over the evidence for that. We know Ivan experiences some sort of traumatic experience in this video. Thanks to the song I mentioned earlier, Midwestern Trauma Light. We already got the Midwestern part. We know that relates to the location in which this video is taking place. But the trauma light portion of that is what gives us this evidence. So obviously the trauma then is this event, and the light portion of that would then refer to the green light. So the trauma light, if that's meant to be taken as like kind of like two words that mean one thing, would then relate to the green light. We know Ivan is actually the one involved in this event thanks to a song called Post-Traumatic Amnesia. This song has a version 2 featured on Kane's Out of Sync album. The cover for that song features an eye with various mirrored images of the Threshold outpost. Mirrored imagery absolutely relates to this video, thanks to the night sky being mirrored at the end of this one. The song Post-Traumatic Amnesia is also featured in the first Out of Sync song a long time ago. It's featured at the end of the video in reverse, again dealing with the mirrored imagery here. This song especially relates to Ivan and his life, thanks to certain leitmotifs in a long time ago. We can connect it to other leitmotifs in songs about Ivan. So this again points us in a direction that this video is absolutely without a doubt about Ivan. More evidence that Ivan actually saw into the complex in this video comes to us from the song A Life Entropy Part 1. The cover of this song is a French engraving that features a pilgrim reaching the end of the flat earth and putting their head through the sky, gazing at a world beyond theirs. This directly communicates what Ivan does in Overflow. Thanks to his experiment and the solar flare, he can actually look across the boundary for a brief moment and see the world on the other side, this being the complex. The sun in the corner of this image even begins to flare up at the end of the song, adding more evidence to the idea that the solar flare is what actually causes Ivan to be able to see into the complex. This also adds to various amount of sun imagery that keeps appearing. As I mentioned already in Found Footage 3, there are sun paintings on the wall. There's even sun paintings on the wall in the movie, which we talked about in my last video. Another point to the idea that Ivan actually knows about the complex before first contact is in the video The Third Test, it's stated that Ivan knew that the KV-31 experiments would provide, quote, storage and residential needs to the world.
During a press conference held in April of 1988, Ivan, the vice director of the ASIN Foundation, stating this program offer a solution to all current and future storage and residential needs.
Again, this video occurs before first contact, so before they actually make contact with the complex. So Ivan knew what Async was after before the threshold even opened. So how would he know that? He had to have come into contact with the complex sometime before to know exactly what they were looking for. At the end of this video, we see the night sky again, reflected this time, as I mentioned before. This reflection effect is the same one used in I Remember, which presumably is about Ivan talking, reading a poem about the nature of the complex. So from Overflow onward, the reason why the sky is mirrored is because there is a connection now between the complex and the real world. In this case, it's just through Ivan, not through the threshold. So now it is only a matter of time from 1972 onward until Ivan opens the door to the complex, because his mind is now forever connected with the complex after this event. Last point I wanted to make is regarding the idea that the complex uses Ivan's memories as like a blueprint to build itself out. So we know the complex copies, or to quote the movie, remembers geometry from the real world. But personally, I believe it can only do this like semi-effectively, meaning like often, because Async's threshold is opened. So the reason why in all the Async videos, all the found footage videos, and now the film, the reason why the complex seems so, for lack of a better term, complex, is because there's a permanent opening between the real world and itself, meaning it can consistently reach out onto the memories of human beings and to the memories of just the world in general to copy geometry into itself. Threshold is what allows for null zones to pull people in, and again, how the complex actually is able to continuously remember things from the real world. Stuff that's almost like so good, that it's nearly a perfect copy, like the house in Found Footage 2 and in Found Footage 3, the neighborhood in Pitfalls, and all the spaces in the film. I believe the reason why the complex is able to create these intricate spaces that we continue to see as the movie continues is it keeps getting DNA from the real world thanks to the threshold being opened. The longer the threshold remains opened, the more it's able to pull into reality and the more it's able to steal from it. However, the complex had to start somewhere. I believe the first instance with Ivan, this event in Overflow, is what gave it its initial memories to chew on to build itself out. This might be the reason that the default areas of the complex, meaning the areas with the yellow wallpaper and the office lights and the carpet, all look the same, and the reason why this is the most repeated thing that we see in the entire series is because Ivan had once encountered a space like it, and then it became the only memory that the complex had to create its geometry from. But then once the threshold is opened in First Contact, and once null zones start to appear throughout the world, it can continue to build itself out through remembering spaces from the real world. But Ivan is what gives it the initial blueprint, because it had to start somewhere. I don't believe that spaces had been copied since the dawn of time. Regardless, the points that I think are irrefutable and are absolute are Ivan seeing into the complex or having some sort of contact with it, the solar flare, and the fact that the green light is the complex uses to create new spaces or to build itself out. I think those things we can take away from this video with almost an absolute certainty. The idea that Ivan's memories are what give the complex its initial boost to kind of build itself out, the idea that the yellow wallpaper areas are the quote-unquote default area, that I could see end up being disproven, but I think the other things that I mentioned, those 3 points, are absolutely what occurs in this video and things we could take away from it as nearly an absolute certainty. For the most part, I think that's pretty much what we got in this video. I think that's pretty much exactly what happens. So thank you guys for watching. Again, thank you guys so much for all the views, the likes, the comments on the last video. I really appreciate it. Again, I don't ever really do any of this stuff for attention. I just do this for fun. So it was really cool, though, to see the response to it, because I love talking about Kane's series. Yeah, and I hope to continue to talk about this in other videos. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much.